I'm going to show you two different methods for making trench systems. To demonstrate this, I'm using Space Hulk tiles from Games Workshop. And I just want you to imagine these tiles as your trenches. In other words, the hallway here is your trench, this on both sides are your sandbags, and the black areas would be the hill sloping down on each side. The first method for making trenches is to make everything in even increments so it will all interconnect to itself. Basically, you have straight hallway sections, you've got corner sections, and you've got T-sections. If you wanted to make an even trench system, I have plans on the website you can use. They include a corner piece, a T-piece, and a regular straight piece. Before you use them, be sure to put a ruler on it and measure it to make sure it's exactly the right size that it should be. Now when you cut these out, the only thing that matters are the connecting ends. In other words, cut exactly on the black lines where they connect, and then it really doesn't matter what you do in between. Now I've mounted this template on a piece of cardstock to make it easier to draw around the edges. And what you do is just get a chunk of foam big enough that this template can set on top of, and we're going to draw around it. But we're not going to draw around the whole thing. What we're going to do is only draw where those black lines were. That's the only part that we're going to be interested in. So take a marker of some kind or a ballpoint pen, and what you're going to do is you're going to draw just this very edge right along here. You're going to do that on all three sides. Then what we're going to do is we're going to indicate where the sandbags are going to go. So this will help us when we're actually putting this thing together. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line right here where the sandbags are, and right here. And I'm going to draw one like here. We're going to do that on all three sides. Now once you get these three sides drawn on, it's completely up to you what you want to do with this. You don't have to make a standard T-shape. When you connect these ends, you could connect them more going out here. Or you could make this one dive in sort of deeply. Or you could make this one kind of bubble way out over here. I don't know, maybe you've got like a big bunker over here that you want to include. Maybe the trenches that connect here, they don't have to be straight even. You could simply make the bunkers, once they come out of here, they could sort of dive over sort of crooked sideways and come over this way. It just depends on you, whatever you want to do in the center. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the outside edges here. Now my trench system is going to look more like this. Everything is going to be at odd angles and nothing will interconnect into itself. Because it doesn't interconnect into itself, I've got the freedom to make pieces any size and any shape I want and not even worry about if it connects. To me, the trench system is basically a barrier that goes across the gaming table, and all you have to do is get across it. It's not a dungeon. It's not a maze that has to interconnect to itself. Now, since my trenches are not going to be even trenches, in other words, they won't connect to themselves, I'm not even going to worry about this. The only thing I'm going to worry about is this end of the template where they connect to each other. So I'm just going to take a pair of scissors, lop this thing off, and this is the only piece that I'm going to use. So I'm going to make kind of a crooked T-piece. In other words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this up against a straight edge, whatever size chunk of foam I want. I'm going to slide it back a little bit. And then I'm just going to put a mark where the end of the hill is, where the end of the hill is, and where the sandbags are going to connect. And then I'm going to move it over to this side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mark these 3 spots. Actually, I guess that would be 6 spots. And then I'm going to do it on the remaining side that's over here. Be sure that the edges are cut perfectly straight. Put a ruler on them and make sure that they're straight, otherwise they won't butt up against each other properly. Next thing I'm going to do is mark the edges of the foam. So this is where the edge of it is here, and I'm going to just, I'm going to go a little bit uneven. And I'll mark it over to here. And on this side, this is where this edge goes. And I'm going to mark it right there. So I'll have a path for my knife to cut. Then I'll go ahead and cut this outside edge with my knife. Since I have a line, that gives me something to follow with my knife, because I may not be able to cut through it the first time. And if you can't cut through it the first time, it's kind of hard to find the same line you were cutting on if you don't know where that line was. Because if you just cut into foam, it's almost impossible to see that cut line. I don't have anything to go by. But if you draw a line, at least when you go your second time to cut through all the way down to the bottom, you have something to go by. Now, it may not cut super perfect on the edge, And it really doesn't matter because we're going to bevel the edge and do some work on it anyway. Now if you look at the end, the connecting end, we can see the two marks that we have here for our sandbags, and here's the edge of the hill right here. What we're going to do is we're going to take a knife, maybe something with a longer blade on it, and I'm going to cut diagonally from the edge of the sandbag to the edge of the bottom of the hill right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that with a knife, and then just kind of get rid of that piece right there. There we go. And if you can see, we've got an angle from the sandbag to the edge right over there. And on the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Now this is what a connecting end will look like. Now we've indicated lines on here where the sandbags are going to start, come onto the piece, and where they're going to come off of the piece. Now when you're lining these sandbags up along both sides, you want to do interesting things occasionally, but there are some things that you want to avoid. Let's say like this one right here. When you've got a kind of a curve like this along the wall, remember that you're going to put 2-inch plank pieces along beside it. Well, what are you going to do when you run into this curve here? That's going to be a little bit more difficult to solve. The curved pieces are a little harder to use that way. If you want to use the curved piece, it's probably best only to use one. And if you're going to use one, put them in a configuration sort of like this, so that it comes up a little curve and then comes back. And that way we can use 2-inch planks up to it, 2-inch planks away from it, and we might be able to sort of cap it off with just a 1-inch right there and actually make that work. Another thing you want to avoid are too many zigzags. Remember that we have 5 times as many of these long planks as we do anything else. So if you have too many crazy curves in here, you say, well, this is too short, I can't use a 2-inch there, I can't use it there, I can't use it there. This whole wall is going to have to be used up with all the short pieces, and they'll end up using all my short pieces, and I still have this huge stack of 2-inch planks that I can't use. So you want to have a lot of sections that are fairly straight. So try to plan it so that you can at least get one long section before you start making a curve back. Okay, that one I think I can do a long curve. And now we'll go ahead and curve it back this way, and I've got another long section that I can use a 2-inch plank for. Now when stacking on the sandbags, try to keep them around a 1/2 inch high. Now you can go a little bit lower and a little bit higher to try to give sort of a natural look to it. But you don't want to go too low for too long, because keep in mind that these plank pieces are going to be, let's just extend this out, they're going to be glued beside this, and this sandbag is going to cover it up the scraped side or the flat side of this plank piece. But if you have too many short pieces, let's say if you glue a short piece, you're going to expose a 1/4 inch of that that's got no wood texture or anything on it. Now after these are glued down and they're dry, we're going to go ahead and cut the outside shape of this. Avoid cutting these edges, because these edges right here are meant to fit right up against other pieces, so we don't want to mess those up. Instead, let's go ahead and just start cutting around the outside. I'm trying to do this in the camera, so the angle's not going to be the best. But what I want to do is I don't want this steep edge right here. So let's extend this knife out a little bit. What I'm going to do, instead of cutting like this, it doesn't work too well. Lean the knife back a little and it'll slice a little bit easier for you. And yeah, you're going to make a mess on the table, but that's sort of what happens. Okay, there we go. Let's just carve this down a little bit here. And if it's a little messy, it's going to be okay, because we're going to cover this up with ground foam and dirt and other stuff.